So what does it take for an entire community, thousands of people, to stand up and renounce their leaders in one single dramatic moment? Well, today we're diving into a story of rebellion, faith, and identity from 17th century India. It's a story of a single oath that would split a church right down the middle and change the lives of millions forever.
Picture this. It's January 3rd, 1653. We're in the port town of Mattancherry in South India. The air here is absolutely thick with tension. Thousands of people are gathering, but this isn't a festival. They're here to take an oath together, a powerful, defiant stand against a foreign power that had spent the last 50 years trying to systematically erase who they were.
So the big question is, what could possibly push a deeply faithful community to a breaking point like this? To really get it, we have to go back in time, and not just a few decades, but centuries.
You see, long before this crisis, this community, known as the St. Thomas Christians, or Nasranis, was already one of the oldest Christian communities in the entire world. Their story didn't start when Europeans showed up. It started with an apostle. I mean, just look at this timeline. The tradition says their faith was founded way back in 52 AD by St. Thomas the Apostle himself. For more than 1,000 years, they didn't just survive, they thrived. They had a golden age, they were prosperous, and they were deeply respected. But then, 1498, the Portuguese explorer Vasco da Gama arrives, and that really marks the beginning of the end of an era for them.
And their identity was totally unique. They weren't Roman Catholic. Their traditions came from the Church of the East over in Persia, and they were led by their own powerful local leader, the archdeacon. Local kings respected them so much that they were granted special privileges, literally inscribed on copper plates. They were a cornerstone of Kerala society.
But when the Portuguese arrived, they didn't see fellow Christians they could connect with. No, they saw Christians who were different, and in their minds, different meant wrong. This basic misunderstanding set the stage for a massive clash of worlds.
And right here, this is the heart of the conflict. On one side, you've got this ancient community whose faith is woven right into the fabric of India, and on the other, you have Portuguese missionaries with one single goal: bring everyone under the direct, centralized control of Rome. These two worlds were just on a collision course.
For decades, the Portuguese kept trying to assert control, but the real turning point, the thing that planted the seeds of this rebellion, was a council they forced on the local church back in 1599. And let's be clear, this was not a meeting of equals, it was an imposition.
This event was called the Synod of Diamper. It was led by a really powerful Portuguese archbishop, and its entire purpose was to systematically take apart the traditions of the St. Thomas Christians and rebuild their church in the image of the Roman Catholic Church from Europe.
The rules that came out of the synod, they were a total assault on their identity. It cut their ancient ties to the church in the East. It stripped their own leader of all his power. And maybe most devastating of all, it ordered their sacred books, their history, their prayers to be burned. It was a direct attempt to erase who they were.
So, you have to understand, the oath in 1653 wasn't some sudden explosion. It was the result of over 50 years of this simmering anger, of watching their heritage get dismantled piece by piece. The whole community was basically a powder keg, just waiting for a spark.
And that spark finally came in 1653. A rumor started spreading like wildfire that the Portuguese had drowned a bishop sent from the East, a bishop the community had been desperately waiting for. That was it. That was the last straw. They were finally ready to act.
The scene that day must have been incredible. Thousands of people gathered around this large, open-air stone cross. The crowd was so huge that not everyone could physically touch the cross. So what did they do? They tied long ropes to it, so that every single person, just by holding onto a rope, was physically part of this oath.
So what was the oath they took? They pledged that they and their children and their children's children would never again submit to the authority of the Portuguese Jesuits. They would not accept the bishops who had tried to crush their ancient traditions. It was, for all intents and purposes, a declaration of independence.
But this incredible moment of unity, it came at a tremendous cost. The community that had stood together for over 1,500 years was about to break apart forever.
The oath essentially split the community in two. One group, the Puithincourt, or New Allegiance, stuck to their guns and broke from Rome, eventually adopting West Syriac traditions.
The other group, the Paziakur, or Old Allegiance, eventually worked things out with the Catholic Church, but on new terms that let them keep their own Eastern rites. This group became the foundation of what we now know as the Syro-Malabar Church.
So, why are we talking about a religious dispute from the 17th century in Kerala? Well, because its echoes are still heard loud and clear today. They completely define the Christian landscape of the region.
And when you look at it from a modern perspective, this event becomes even more significant. Many historians now see this as something much bigger than a church dispute. They see it as one of the very first organized protests against European colonialism in India, a fight for religious freedom and cultural self-determination.
And this is the result. This is the lasting legacy of that oath. The incredibly diverse and complex Christian landscape you see in Kerala today. All these different churches like the Syro-Malabar, the Malankara Orthodox, the Jacobite churches, every single one can trace its distinct identity right back to that fracture that happened in 1653.
So in the end, the Coonan Cross Oath was so much more than just a historical footnote. It was a defining moment, a struggle for identity and autonomy, and its outcome is still shaping the faith and lives of millions of people today.
And it leaves us with a really powerful question to think about. When your faith and your culture collide, what are you willing to protect? What's worth breaking for?